So we all know that it's been a long day with a lot of information, really great presentations from everyone today who presented, so thank you to everybody. We also realize that we're the last set of people that are keeping you from Idlewild. So we know we're here for an hour, but I think this is going to be a really fast-moving, engaging, informative panel that we're going to have for you guys for the next 45 minutes to an hour. We do want to hear questions from you as well. I have a list of questions here that we're going to kind of fire through and hear different perspectives from the experts up here on stage. But we do want to leave time at the end if any of you have questions as well. So the first question I guess I will ask Karyn and Tom, and Susan can chime in certainly as well, is how do you, from a swim school perspective and then from a club perspective and as well from Susan, is how do you use social media to engage your different audiences?
Well, I use it on. I'm very strategic with how I use social media. A few years ago, I realized that it's a really great opportunity to connect with our clients, the majority of them, the moms. So I use it to get them to engage with us and for us to engage with them. And I also have used it to build my brand, which I think we've done quite well over the past few years.
Cool. Up on, before we get to Tom real quick, up here we see the top tweet up there is you're tweeting an article about sibling rivalry. So it's not just tweeting, we talked yesterday about the 80-20 percentage about self-interest in tweeting versus topics as a whole. So just talk about that if you would.
Well, yeah, definitely the 80-20 rule. And what I want is my moms to wake up in the morning, they check the news or the Today Show or whatnot, or People Magazine app, but I want them to be excited to go to our Facebook page and not just like, oh, someone's swimming, but to find it useful and also connect. Like, I'm a mom of 3, and like this I get, and my clients get it too. And so I want them to come to the pool and be able to talk about it with each other. I'm like, hey, did you see that? So again, they're engaged.
Great. Tom?
I think we hit on it earlier in what we try to use it for. Social media, Twitter, Facebook, and now I'll have to get Andrew on Instagram probably in another month or two after he qualifies for the team. But it's really information, just promoting the brand, putting it out there. What are our kids doing? How are they doing it? Not only in the pool, but in their academics. It's key, as we tell all these athletes that swim for us. Not many of them are going to have the opportunities to go on and do this for a living. Our coaches do, I do, but most of them are going to have to do something else, so their academics are important. So we want to give them shout-outs when we see special stuff in that too, not just in the pool.
Yeah, very similar. We use it to share information. We use it to raise awareness around abuse prevention, creating positive sport culture at a club, to share not only what we're doing, but what our colleagues are doing, what other agencies are doing, NGBs, sharing information, connect with the constituency, like Karyn talked about, and really, like I guess how you would use social media, provide and share information.
So this time we're going to start with Tom first, and there's a reason for that. Policies and procedures. I mean, social media can be a can of worms if you allow it to be. So what policies do you have in place to really sort of, quote unquote, control how social media is used by your staff? We heard a little bit about your staff earlier, but staff, parents, athletes, employees.
I think if you have it up there, yeah, we just, and I have to give credit to a lot of this for all the young staff members that I have. Dory Halby, who's one of our coaches, who's about 24, mother of 2, works with our younger kids at our Georgetown prep site. She came to me and said, hey, we need a communications policy. So she put this together, had me read it, put it together, and then we sent it to Andrew, tweeted it out, and then put it on the web page. So everything that we do is all about communication. We have to communicate with the parents. We got to communicate with the kids what our expectations are, what we expect them to do, how we expect them to behave, because otherwise they get calls from Susan. But kids are kids. They're going to make mistakes. And our jobs as coaches are to be teachers. and try to stop them from making big mistakes. As one example, Paris and I had in January, where the January Open was happening, and all of a sudden, Paris calls me at 8:30 on Sunday night, because I took over her role as PVS admin chair, and one of her parents called her that there's some Twitter feed started by a kid called PVS Swim Cest or something. And it was getting awful close to going over the edge, talking about kids and whether they're, dating or hooking up or however they talk. So she called me on it, and we didn't know who it was. We didn't know whether it was one of our swimmers, whether it was one of RMSC swimmers, whether it was one of the machine swimmers. So I went on, and I just followed them so I could see what was going on. And then I sent them a private message. I said, you're getting awful close to getting against the code of conduct policy. And it was just that they didn't realize what they were doing, that they were saying things that they shouldn't say, that they could hurt somebody else. So I look at what we do with our policies, and what we need to be doing as coaches is helping these kids learn and know what's appropriate and what's inappropriate.
Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, exactly right. Policies are really important. Sometimes I think we get so inundated with policies, we feel like maybe it's an overreach or, going a little too far. But what's great, policies are really important for a couple reasons. One is what Tom has just talked about. They really set a bandwidth of expectations. Each of us has our own sort of spectrum of what we're okay with and what we're not okay with. And if you rely on everyone to use their own spectrum or their own judgment, you're going to end up all over the place in terms of what's okay and what's not okay. So we, acknowledge that everyone has their own common sense and their own sense of judgment, and that's probably just fine. But in this community, this is our policy, and that creates our set of expectations about how we behave, about how we treat each other, and about how we respect each other. And so what that means is that the negative behaviors, or that behaviors that are outside of your policies, they really stand out, and they allow you to address those and curve that person back within that bandwidth of appropriate behaviors before you're way down here, way outside of the appropriate behaviors, and you're into egregious behavior. The other thing that policies do when there is a violation or when you are outside that bandwidth is that they depersonalize the criticism. So if your policy is that it's not okay for athletes to sit on your lap, and if you're in swimming, that's everybody's policy because that is a rule. But if that's your policy and you have if that's not your policy and you go up to Coach Bob, because Coach Bob always has kids sit on his lap, and you say, Bob, you're really creeping everybody out. That's really personal. You just told Bob he's a total creep. But if you go up to Bob and say, I don't know if you remember the rule, but in this community, kids don't sit on our laps. And Bob can say, oh, I totally forgot, sorry. So you depersonalize the criticism. It's not criticizing Bob as a total creep. It's just reminding him what our bandwidth of appropriate behavior is here, what we expect from you. And the third thing that's important about policies, and we're going to talk a little bit about kind of safe sport and social media in a second, but it's the motivation to get all your leaders and all your coaches and adults on board, and even kids, which is policies really help protect against false allegations, which comes up every time we talk about safe sport. Fortunately, false allegations are really rare, but there's a big fear and concern about them, which we understand and really appreciate. And what's great about policies is that if you are really know what your policies are, what your culture looks like, everyone kind of behaves in that space. If there is an allegation, you can look at the behavior of the person against whom the allegation has been made and say, there is nothing about that person's behavior. That allegation doesn't make sense because we have a policy that you don't text anyone after 9 p.m. If that person's texting people all the time, it makes it easier to believe a false allegation. Does that make sense? If they behave or abide by all the policies, it just makes it harder. You have to dig a little deeper to figure out if that's true or not. And so you want to make those false allegations not believable from the outset.
Do you have anything to add here?
In regards to policy for our swim school, my athletes are the 6 and under crowd, so I don't necessarily have to monitor their Facebook or Instagram. But I guess I start managing the parents' expectations very early on. So we have something called the parent agreement, and it outlines all of our policies from swim diapers to our absence policy, and we also have a social media policy as far as this is what we do. We also run contests on Facebook, so you should look us up and whatnot, and we will post pictures. If you do not want your child posted, please mark the box and let us know. We also have the photo waiver attached to our parent agreement. So we basically put all of it out there the day they sign up, and lay it all out on the table and have them sign it. So if they do come back and say, well, I didn't know about this or I didn't like that, I pull out the parent agreement and say, actually, here we go. But I lay it all out there.
Does everyone in the room have photo waivers as part of either the registration or an immediate subsequent part of your registration program? That's an important part to have. It eliminates any blurred lines later on. So I would encourage anyone who doesn't. It sounds like I see a lot of head nodding in the room, which is fantastic, that is something that clears up the page right away.
Scott, we have a model waiver that's available on our website, and there's also copies of it, I think, on the next to the drink cooler back there.
And the Swim Biz cookies,
Right.
which I know everyone in the room knows where they are already. Does anyone in the room feel like they're restrained from social media because of safe sport or fear of putting out things that may be construed the wrong way through safe sport? I hope there are no hands that get raised because of it, and that's a good sign. Good. It shouldn't be the case at all. So maybe, Susan, you start with this one. Why should people feel easy to use social media and still be able to work within kind of the framework of what's appropriate from safe sport?
Yeah, so I think it makes sense. It's great to see that there isn't concern or fears about or restraint of using social media as a result of safe sport. And I think the distinction that's really important is whether we're talking about social media for your clubs or social media for your organization versus social media from a personal account or personal texting, for instance. And so the conundrum that we see is that we really need social media to promote our clubs, to communicate with parents, to communicate with kids, absolutely, colleagues. But social media also allows, particularly from the personal account side, what we know offenders need to hurt kids or to offend against kids, which is privacy, access, and control. But that's a solvable problem. And so, a couple things to really address that or remove that privacy, access, and control piece. One is policies, and we talked at length about those. What are your policies? What are your expectations for coaches on social media and for kids on social media with each other? How are you communicating with your athletes and with their families? Make sure the families know how to expect coaches to communicate with them. Second, Tom touched on this, communication. The only thing worse than not having a policy is having one that you never use and never talk about. So coaches and leaders should definitely know your policies, particularly around electronic communication, but your parents and your athletes need to know it too. Because if it's an adult on your team who's violating your electronic communication policy and engaging in inappropriate or excessive social media with an athlete, if the athlete doesn't know or the parent doesn't know that that's inappropriate, the athlete just might think that they're getting special attention or that that might feel good. And so the athlete and the parent, as well as all your leadership, need to understand what those expectations around social media are so that it puts up the sort of the warning flag for either the parent or the athlete if there is a line being crossed. And then finally, motivation. A policy is only good as as all the members' willingness to follow it. So create those policies in conversation with your athletes, in conversation with the parents, in conversation with your coaches and your leadership, and get buy-in. How do we, as a community, want to treat each other? How do we want to respect each other? What's the best ways for us to communicate with each other? And motivate everyone by creating buy-in, and then motivate your leadership by helping them understand that those policies protect them as well.
So I just put up on the screen an example that Minnesota Swimming did. I thought it was a good one to show how they drove traffic through their social media back to a story they created about creating positive culture and overcoming some of the the quote-unquote negative behaviors on their website. And I just thought it was a good example of ways you can turn the conversation around and use it as a pivot point to some of the positive things that are going on to create a safe environment and a welcoming environment within your clubs or LSCs.
So I would say, yeah, don't let social media scare you. It is something we have to deal with, but I can tell you, especially your teenagers, they're using it. Whether you like it or not, that's how they're communicating. And the more that you can be aware of it and your coaches can be aware of it, we can stop things from happening that go too far. I know Susan, I've had 3 that I have dealt with on the club since the beginning of the season. One I had to get Susan involved with because most of the time the parents don't understand it. They think their child is getting bullied and this has got to stop. You got to kick the person off the team. So we try to get them involved, meet with the parents, with the coach. Then I call a meeting with the group that they're in and the parents. First thing I ask them is, how many of you parents have a Twitter account? They don't even know, 50% of them don't know what's going on, don't know that their kid has a Twitter account. So it really becomes down to when we deal with social media and safe sport is educating the parents first. Get them to understand when they come to me with a problem, my coaches only have your kids for 2 hours a day. We can't control everything they do. We can monitor it and try to help, but you guys got to step in. You got to be aware of what's going on, what your kids are doing, and we'll certainly help. But don't expect us as coaches of athletes to be able to control it. That's your job. So help them understand what this social media is about, what Twitter's about, what Snapchat's about, what Instagram's account. And I tell a bunch of them sometimes, get rid of it. Stop using it, because it's going to get you in trouble. And most of them get it.
So Karyn, USA Swimming, we have some hashtag campaigns. One's going on right now, and one's going to be next month. We have hashtag #1VolunTeam going on right now, for those of you who aren't aware. And next month is our Coaches Are campaign. And we've done that to create some news and attention and people continuing a conversation over a several-week period or a month. What are some of the examples that you've had for through social media of exciting campaigns that you guys have done? And then we'll push it down the row here as well.
My favorite thing. So we actually have a lot of campaigns, but we're the most popular one, I would have to say, we did recently. We kind of were hoping for, I don't know, a little bit of involvement, but it blew up, and it was hashtag 10 Days of Floaties. And so what it was is we created a list for, again, parents to be involved, and it was basically, it was for Instagram only. So show us pictures of nap time or swim lessons. We did it in October, so Halloween. Or mealtime, favorite, I don't know, favorite bedtime book or something. So it was a list of 10. And so they would take a picture, post it on Instagram, and use the hashtag 10 Days of Floaties. And I think it blew up to where we got 40,000 likes, or all the different posts, or the different parents or whatnot. And whoever completed all 10, we were going to give $5 to swim bucks. And my husband Mike's like, how much are we going to give away? And I was like, don't worry, like $20, no one's going to do it. I don't think I really ever told him the exact number because it was so popular. But that was really, it was fun. It was, and parents, again, would be at the pool talking about it, and they would kind of get competitive with each other. We do something, Black Friday, hashtag Black Friday FSS. And we promote gift certificate sales the day after Thanksgiving, which we've had a lot of success. And currently we have our March Madness brackets going on, and we have our instructors competing with each other. So it's fun. It's really fun, and it builds excitement within our staff and our clients.
Great. Tom, anything you guys are doing?
I haven't really gotten into doing a lot of that. I think the things that we use it for is when we want to promote something like Katie is up for the Sullivan Award, and making sure that we get that word out to all the kids and please vote for her, and things like that. So more of that. We haven't really gotten into that stuff yet.
I think we had a question yesterday that came during my presentation about should you create news, or is it worthwhile, and how do you do it? And I think Karyn gave a real nice case study there about not only should you do it, but how you can do it, and have a call to action at the end of what you're asking people to act upon. And we're all creative people in the room, and I think you can create that incentive for what your business goal is, and then work back against that. Who are your key audiences?
Mine are obviously young families, the moms, the millennial moms, Gen X moms. So dads too. However, it's the moms that bring the 3-month-old babies to swim class and get in the pool with them. So we really target the moms.
Our athletes?
You want to give them that one? Oh.
Our athletes, number one, then the parents, and then media. I mean, getting the word out to what we're doing to Swim Swam, Swimming World, Reach for the Wall, that do a lot of coverage for us, is our key audiences.
What are parents' expectations, and how do you manage them? Through social media, we're talking about right now.
What's their expectations with social media?
Yeah. Maybe you don't have it as much as maybe Tom does, but I mean, do parents have an expectation of what you are going to provide them from an information standpoint, or put out about their children, or resources or information such as what's above?
I don't think on social media they have as much of an expectation as on the website in making sure that they can find out all the information on the team that they need to find out. As I said, I think we have 518 followers on a team that has 1,855 members. So our minis, they aren't really looking for that. Our 9, 10s, 11, 12s. Mostly I think for social media right now, we're focusing on our 13 and aboves because we know they're using it a lot more. And trying, I think the biggest thing for us is educating the parents on what is it about. I go into these meetings with parents that, I can look the dad right in the face and said, if someone says something bad to you on social media, you got no recourse. It's up there forever. When you and I were in the playground, a punch would be thrown and it'd be over. But that's not the way it is now. We got to keep these young athletes to understand once it goes up on the web, it stays there. And everybody has feelings. So I think it's just trying to help them understand what it means when you put words that go on the internet.
I think for managing my parents' expectations, they want to see their kid on Facebook. They want to see the happy, smiling kids in the water. They want to see the videos. They want to see a 2-year-old being able to jump into the pool, do a safety circle, and come back. And then they tag their friends and look at my kid, look at my kid. So they expect a lot of that from us, and they want to see the fun side.
Tom, you just mentioned something that triggered another question for me, is the website. So how do you use social media to drive people back to your website where more information and registration might be that makes that business transaction happen? This was not a planned question.
Yeah, I know it was, and you threw it at me for that. I don't know that Andrew's created a way that somebody can be on Twitter and get back to the website, but if you're on the website, there are tabs on the left-hand side that go to Facebook and to Twitter. So we try to keep them. We try to drive everybody to the website first and then go to the other mediums as we go.
Do you use links? Do you try, or do you have a concerted effort to use links and within your social media to direct them to your website?
No, but I'm going to start that now that you mention it.
Okay. Karyn, anything that you guys do special in that regard?
I don't drive them as much to the website, but we have links. So if you go onto our Facebook or Twitter, any of our social platforms, there's our website. So obviously we want them to go and check it out, but we tend to put more information on our social platforms.
How social media made life easier for you, or maybe more difficult for you?
I think in some regards it's easier because we are very transparent. We let people know what's going on. Hey, you know what? If the pool is being finicky or delicate or moody, we put it out there and say, hey, you know what, this is what's going on. Or recently, one of our instructors broke his collarbone from he was skiing. So we were able to put it out there. So ahead of time, when parents got to their lessons, they had already prepped their kids, and they weren't like, oh my gosh, Mr. Bryan's not here. So in that regard, it's a little bit easier for us, actually.
I don't want to say it's made my life harder, but it's another part of the business that we have to be aware of. Coaches want to coach. And when they get pulled into having to deal with Twitter or Instagram, it takes them away from coaching. But it's part of what we do today. And you can't run away from it. So we have to deal with it. So it's just part of what we do today.
I think what we hear of how social media has made things more challenging is with the bullying and the sexting and interactions between kids on social media. And I think it's the nebulous nature of, that it's happening. If those kids go to school together and they live in the same neighborhood and they are on the same swim team, whose responsibility is it to deal with? And I think we see a lot of, because it's in this virtual world, adults who don't want to take responsibility because it's hard. It's definitely hard to deal with. But the advice that we give to folks that call with those questions and the concerns is that, whatever behavior you're seeing online, like Tom said, be the responsible, be the caring adult in those kids' lives. Take the opportunity to educate the kids to rectify that problem and treat it just like you would if you saw that same behavior on deck, in reality, in physical space right on your deck. So if two kids are, if a kid has sent a nude picture to another kid, what would you do if kids bring in Playboy to practice? How would you handle that? If a kid's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, gaining up on another child, what would you do if you were seeing that relational aggression happen on deck at your practice? Just use the same practices that anyone who's been working with kids has had to deal with forever, way before social media came into play. And probably in some ways the online interaction is a little bit easier to deal with because you don't have to figure out if it really happened because it's all there documented right online. You can grab the screenshots off and say, I know it happened, here it is.
Behind the scenes content. The Orcas here did a couple of unique things by taking pictures of sessions that normally your audiences wouldn't see unless they were in the room. Talk a little bit about how you try and use, and I know, Karyn, I'm going to start with you because you've done some great job with smiling faces of lessons and videos, and talk a little bit about how you try and use that behind the scenes and peeling the curtain back a little bit to give people a look about what you're doing.
Well, what I've realized over the years, parents like to feel like they know us, that they get to see a little bit behind the scenes or what goes on, or that they're friends with their, kid's swim instructor. So we do fun things. When the song Happy, we did a video with our staff on the beach and put that on our social platforms and YouTube, and it was really popular and lots of fun. We do funny little things if we're, bored at work one day, scare an employee coming out of the bathroom and post it, and parents love it. So it's just another way for them to feel engaged and like they're getting to know us on not just a hi, welcome to Floaties.
Yeah, for us, it's just trying to get them engaged in the community. Andrew's doing a great job of getting the other coaches to send pictures if they're at a swim meet or at a practice. We have a bunch of them up there. We take 48 athletes down to Arizona over Martin Luther King birthday weekend. They all get on the plane. They go there for a weekend. We got pictures up from all those kids getting back. We'll do a trip to North Carolina with about 200 swimmers to the Greensboro Aquatic Center. We'll take pictures there, put it up so that the kids that may not be going get to see what's going on. And, wow, I want to do that next year. So trying to use it to just inform.
So everyone, parents included, love to see pictures of themselves or their kids. So recognition is a big part of being included in a program. How do you guys use recognition of participants or athletes in your social media to try and generate interest and keep that retention that we talked about a little bit about earlier going strong?
I think it's all that what we try to do. We just try to engage every athlete in our program to get recognized. It's not just about Katie Ledecky. It's not just about Andrew Seliskar or any of our national team members. It's that 9 and 10-year-old that wants to come to practice every day. You know, we had one of the coaches came to me and said, "Hey, can I take all the kids that came to practice every practice during Christmas break to breakfast?" And I said, "Yeah, if that's a good way to get them there, then do it." She had to take 6 of them out and sent me the bill. But
Did you share that on social media, or was it just something privately that happened?
I don't know that she added that to social. I think she did put something on there about the breakfast. She took them out, took a picture. So it's trying to engage them all to want to do better, to want to come to practice, and be better people, better athletes, better brothers and sisters.